We make the strings
louder.
Welcome back to the channel. It's been a busy week. I've actually like a busy week and a half. So I went out last Wednesday to St. Louis, or flew out to St. Louis to help out Adam LZ with his Formula Drift Pro 2 program. So kind of helping him out in the pits and helping him with his vlog video and all that type of stuff. So I haven't had a video basically in it's almost been a week now. So yeah, as you've seen in my last video, we did send a little bit of a rod out of the bottom of this bone stock K20, and so now the plan for this thing is to put a stock K24 A2 in it. And the reason for that is I've talked to Brent, I've talked to a couple other guys that have kind of ran these things, and kind of the limits of the stock engine is the limits of the stock transmission. So I could go crazy, I could spend, you know, $6,000 building a crazy, let's say 1,000 horsepower capable engine in this thing. And what am I gonna do the first time I put it in here and take it to the track? I'm gonna blow up the transmission. So we're gonna take it a little bit slow. I'm gonna try and gather parts to do both at basically the same time. So I have been talking to one company about some engine stuff, so we might be working together on that, so stay tuned. But so the engine might go kind of crazy, but the next thing is gonna be the transmission. So the stock CRV transmissions and transfer cases and all that type of stuff, normally about 600 horsepower is where they seem to get very unhappy. You can make it a little bit further than that, but that is when you will start to have issues with them, especially being all-wheel drive. So the plan now is this is a 55,000 mile basically kind of junkyard, but it's a guy that basically has a couple of these things laying around. He has a shop up in Denver. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this engine. It's a bone stock K24 A2. It's the same exact one that I had before. Actually less mileage too, but it was actually out of an automatic car. So I need to get a pilot bushing and do some other stuff like that. So we're gonna get this engine all cleaned up, intake manifold, change all the other accessories back over to some of those really sweet K-tuned ones. And we're gonna get this stock K20 out of here, and we're gonna smash this thing into there. So the only delay is I don't have a clutch pilot bushing since this is an automatic engine. But that I ordered one of those earlier today, and it should be here early tomorrow morning. So that I guess is the plan for this video. I don't want to ramble on too long. Basically, I just want to get started and go over the whole process of swapping this thing back over. so I've been messing around with these things for a little while and went ahead and decided to throw them on the engine stand just so they're a little bit nicer to work on, other than like them swinging around on cherry pickers and stuff. Yeah, so this is what we're after on this this K20. So this was the 217,000 mile engine out of that RSX, and as you can see, this thing is a spring chicken. You can see how clean and nice everything was as far as the oil, and nothing's brown or gross or anything. A lot of times when you see like an older engine or like a high mileage engine, you'll see a lot of like crusty looking stuff, like, you know, there's oil burnt to the valve cover, and I mean underneath this thing just looks, I mean, it looks pretty much new. It's crazy. So when I was saying that this thing looked like a spring chicken, that's what I mean, is nothing's discolored, nothing's brown, there's no crud basically built up under here. And it's funny because this one actually looks a little bit cleaner than this one, and this one supposedly had 55,000 miles on it. So who knows? This one does look like it's been into before, maybe to replace some of the timing stuff. You can see it has some little dots and stuff on the gears, and you could see right here where there's some RTV kind of built up right there where somebody actually went through and redid it. It's not like OEM RTV. So the other thing that we're after on this this guy right here is this Type S oil pump. So this is the oil pump that lets you rev to about 9,000 RPM. And you know, before like the oil and stuff cavitates. On these K24 A2s, it has a different style oil pump on them. So it actually has like some counterbalance shafts and stuff in it. And I guess when you get into the higher RPM stuff, I don't think you're supposed to rev them over, I don't even think they like them, like 7,500 is where a lot of people don't want to rev them, but people have supposedly revved them to like 8,000 with no issues. But again, we had the rev limiter set at like 8,300 on here, and I think in order to run the times that we actually want to run at the track without having to shift into fifth gear, you have to have a little bit higher of a rev limit around that 8,000, 8,300. The other thing is Brent told us that the valve springs in the K24 heads, they don't like over 20 pounds of boost, which we were running, what was it, 22, 23, I think, to make that power.
Right there. Yeah.
But the timing was also conservative too, so it's like, could add a little bit more timing up top, but then take a little bit of boost out. So it's just kind of one of those things where we're gonna have to play around with it for a little bit. But the other thing is hopefully within like a month or so, we have some sort of a built engine, you know, fully forged bottom end and crazy head and headwork and valve springs and retainers and cams, and just go crazy with like make a monster. For now, this is kind of what we're doing. The other thing is this is the VTC gear, which is like the variable valve timing. So instead of like VTEC where it has this extra lobe right here, a lot of people, if you guys aren't familiar with VTEC, basically a solenoid in here actuates this extra little rocker. And so instead of it riding on this like really low profile camshaft, that's where it makes all its torque. And then up top, when the VTEC crosses over, it basically adds oil to another channel into this whole camshaft deal to where it actually rides on this other rocker arm. So it actually lets more air into the engine. So that's why when VTEC hits, the engine actually gets a little bit louder because it's sucking more air, it's receiving more air, it's happy about it. But one of the things that Honda did in this K-Series is they actually added a variable valve timing. So like the VVTi engine in my Supra or my drift car, instead of it, basically what this does is it rotates and it advances and retards the timing depending on, you know, whether you want the turbo to spool up, whether you want to make like a lot of power down low, you know, a lot of power up top. But in these K24 A2s, the VTC gear is locked at 25 degrees. So this gear can only actuate 25 degrees either way, whereas on the RSX Type S, this is actually a 50 degree VTC. So this is actually a mod that a lot of people do, is they basically put the RSX Type S VTC gear in these things, and then they put the Type S oil pump. So I'm gonna look around in the oil pan and make sure that there wasn't like a whole bunch of crud kind of in there, because I definitely don't want to reuse that oil pump if it, you know, had the chance of sucking up a bunch of debris. I mean, it wasn't running that long after, but I think that we're gonna run into some stuff. You could see there's some giant chunks in there of the piston and the rod, and if you look down in here again, the rod is actually, well, actually, yeah, the rod is still connected to the crankshaft. So pretty much exactly what happened to the other engine, which is almost kind of scary. So I just don't think that these stock K-Series rods actually like the power that we kind of throw at them. It seems like the pistons are okay, and the rods are kind of the weak point of them. This is kind of giving me bad ideas, Ty.
Why?
I mean, we're right here. I mean, so if you guys take a little walk with me over here, we have, this is a set of Eagle H-beam K24 rods, and so these things literally like plop right up in there. Like, I need to go to Honda tomorrow to get that other gasket anyhow. Okay. Like, we could just because
do you have to pull the pistons and everything out of that 24 and do them, and then just?
I mean, I would just get.
If at that point, if you're gonna do that point, you might as well grind the like gaps down too and everything. If you're gonna have them out.
Oh, the ring gaps? I mean, I don't think the ring gaps are a big deal, honestly. I think it's more so the rods.
Well, yeah.
Like, we haven't cracked a ringland. We've just been busting rods like right out of the side of the block, and it's not even a rod knock issue, to where it's
snapping.
It's like detonate. I feel like it's just so much torque, like, and it's just like, and it just like.
Which is so much like instant load. I mean,
at such a low RPM.
And that's what we're saying. Like, even happened with his first one. Is it all the load, just instant load? They just.
And this is all-wheel drive too. It's like, I don't know. I mean, we could go to Honda tomorrow, get a head gasket, we could overnight some studs, we could just throw some rods in it. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's almost not a bad idea.
I mean, it's not a bad idea because it is going to be a little bit of a wait, a little bit longer, like I said, depending on how the built engine
I mean,
goes.
it depends on how crazy we go with the built engine, and we're not actually going to be using this block for the built engine, because I do have the engine out of the CRV, which is right there, which is essentially the same block. It just has the really crappy rods in it. It has the lower compression pistons. It has the VTEC head on it. It only has it on the intake side and not the exhaust side. So it's just kind of like a really lame engine. So I think we're gonna have a little bit of a discussion, and we'll get back to you. Now we get to see, what does this thing still hook to?
This little one right here. Get it?
No, my fingers are too weak. Oh, Ty, that was a good job.
Not too bad with one hand now.
I'm gonna give it a little
turny turn.
You think it's good? You think it's bad?
The head. The top of the cylinder doesn't look bad at all, so maybe it escaped.
Get a little pinch on the backside. Ready?
Flip her over. Honestly,
it's kind of sketchy, but
not really. Just freckled. Just got some freckles, bud.
It didn't hit the piston.
Like, it didn't hit the valves. Yeah, valves didn't hit the piston.
Well, the only thing that I'm thinking is when the valves are open, if any of bits got
in between,
because then that's gonna mess up the seat. But you could just honestly probably have them ground down and freaking
get A2 head.
Good brand new A2 head.
Yeah.
But it's crazy looking at this. This is the rod that came out of it, the other engine. If you look right down in here, look at that one. Look at this, Ty.
What?
Holy crap. It's literally the exact same. Look at that.
They bent in the exact same spot.
Same exact spot.
24 and 20.
24 and 20. So.
No.
And when we pulled apart the rods, like the rod bearings in the other one, like there was no like signs of like really like detonation or any of that type of stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't,
I mean,
they
like,
weren't ballooning or anything.
Yeah, I mean,
no heat.
I don't know. So this thing's probably getting, well, I mean, I guess the only good thing is the RBC gear. for now that we're actually going to use. The head looks like it'd be all right after it had a little bit of cleanup, probably like actually reseating the valves and like grinding the valves in there. I think it would be fine. Time constraints and all the other type of stuff. I mean, there's not really any time constraints, actually. I just want to get it done. So, I mean, because the Cletus and Cars is when? The 24th, and it's the 14th. So, I mean, I could order some parts and just wait. That could be an option. But, I don't know. I'm going to sleep on it, do a little bit of research in the morning, and we'll go from there. All right, guys, so it has been decided just how slippery the slippery slope is. And I guess what has been decided is it's not going to be that slippery. So it could get very slippery, and I know a lot of you guys are going to be like, hey, if you're in there, you might as well just throw pistons in it, and then while you're at it, you might as well do head studs, and then you might as well do a head gasket, and then you might as well do valve springs and retainers, and then, you know, you might as well do a K20 oil pump, and it just keeps going and going and going. So that is, again, like I've said probably a couple times, that is the plan with the built motor. The built motor has already been escalated pretty far. We're just trying to get this thing back in here and make it survive for a little while and have some fun with it. So right here, these are the HBM rods compared to the stock rod right there. And that's what I did last night, is I just did a quick little check to see how these things came apart. And there's just a little keeper in there. There's like a little round spring, little thing like that. So you just pop that out, and then the new rod basically just slides right in there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I went to the Honda dealership today, and I got me some brand new OEM Honda parts, 3 OEM Honda parts to be exact, and I'm not going to tell you what they are. So you guys are just going to have to guess what I'm reusing, what I'm not reusing, all that type of stuff. But this thing is going back together today. This thing does say 55,000 miles on it. And we actually ran a Carfax on it just because I was curious. I wanted to see if this was a 07 TSX, but it's actually a 2006 TSX engine. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and take this thing apart, pull the timing stuff, pop the head off it, take the pistons out of it, swap the pistons over to the rods, weld a bung on the oil pan, and get this thing basically all sealed up and ready to smash in this car. All right, so we have the plastic gauge. Dave is cutting some pieces right now with the razor blade. Do you want to bring over the little measurement tool?
What? The measurement's the piece of paper.
Yeah, go grab it. So, basically what this is, imagine it like Play-Doh.
It's like a little tiny thing of wax, right?
Yeah. So then basically right here is we have our tolerances, our clearances, which we want to be about 0015 to 002-ish, somewhere in there, probably.
Or 25 mil.
Or 25, that's not 25 mil, that's...
Yeah, well, 25, yeah.
Yeah, but anyhow, so basically what happens is since that's like a pliable, squishy thing, is when you put the rod cap on it, it basically squishes it out, and if it squishes it out really, really tight, that's when it has the thick one, or the really, really thin one. That's mean it's really spread out. Or if it's still really thick, that means you have a really, like a lot of oil clearance.
If you have a lot of bearing clearance, it's going to be thinner line.
Yeah.
So it's not pressing it.
If you have less, it's going to be a fatter line.
So the thicker it is, the wider it spreads out. You have like no oil clearance. And if it stays like that, then you have a ton of oil clearance. So then
if it stays like that, you have a problem.
That means you just run some 2050 truck oil.
100 like
some
1,000.
Some 90 weight gear oil.
You just make up some numbers and just hope it doesn't knock.
Do you have torque specs to these on
It
this?
might not. Oh yeah, we got torque specs. So you got to use the ARP lube on these guys. So I'm ARP lubing them, and then we're gonna torque them. Dave, you want to grab the torque wrench?
Is it where it's supposed to be?
Yeah. So the rod things, basically the clearances, perfect. So
just depending on what oil you run.
I mean, I guess it depends on what oil you run. So I'm just gonna be running some 1030. That's what the other ones have blown up on. So I figured we'll just run 1030 on this one.
020.
So hopefully these rods,
030
I mean,
BMW oil.
hopefully these things don't be making no appearances anytime soon. I don't want to see these things for a while.
Alright guys, so Dave decided to come over and take a look at the oil pump, the Type S. What'd you find, Dave?
There's metal on it.
Yeah, so as we suspected, Trev tried to spin it earlier, and it was kind of gritty and fighting it, and so Dave took it apart, and
It has like some
there's some little
bedded.
stuff embedded in there. Just see if you can figure it out. But most likely, no go on the oil pump. So where does that leave you, Trev? K24 pump. Yeah, so K24 pump, and then we'll just not rev it that high, I guess.
So engine is 95% there. The only thing you need to do is stick the crank pulley on and then actually stick on the oil pan. I need to drill a hole in and weld the bung for the turbo return, because my last oil pan, you could see, sent a really big hole in it. So you can see right there, that's what I need to do to the other oil pan. It's in the parts cleaner, ready to go. So the engine's all timed and everything. The interesting thing about these K24 oil pumps is you actually have to time them, since they have balance shafts in them. You have to time them for kind of to counterbalance the stuff in the engine. So the only other modification that we did is we used the 50-degree VTC gear out of the RSX Type S. I think I've talked about it before, but this one only does 25 degrees, whereas the RSX one will do freaking 50 degrees, which is better. And since this is actually an 06 TSX block, Ty was looking at the stuff earlier on the internet, and the 06, 07, and 08 TSX K24s, they are the ones that have the 1mm oversized intake valves, and they have basically the largest K-series factory cam that you could get, and people have made, I think, close to 1,000 horsepower on these stock cams. That's pretty much the deal with this whole engine. Don't give me too much of a hard time. We do have a belt motor kind of in the plans. I just figured I've broken 2 piston rods in this thing. I haven't broken a piston yet. I think the pistons have came apart due to them, you know, the issues with the rods and stuff banging around in there. But I think this thing should hold together. We're going to turn the rev limit down just a little bit. We should have this thing running by the afternoon tomorrow. So if you guys want to see some updates and stuff on that, be sure to follow me on Instagram. Post a lot of stuff on my story. I don't make too many other posts. If you guys would follow me on the Instagram, I'd appreciate that. This whole pile of parts and just giant mess will all be a running and driving car tomorrow. Yeah, so I think that's going to be about it for this video, guys. I really do appreciate you guys watching, and we will see you probably with an update video within like a day and a half of this thing actually ripping on the street with the K24. So see you guys later.